Shalom, Yashala. His brother Patak, right? That'll be key, but in the ancient Paleo Hebrew. And this is gonna be a quick video dealing with Matthew 22 and 23 and on down, right? Chiefly verse 30, because a lot of Christians will try to use this verse to say that there will be no sex in the kingdom of heaven, right? But we're gonna kind of deal with it. Before we go into it, I want to say Ka'ala Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. That'll be all praises to the Most High God Yahweh in the name of his only begotten Son, who the world will ignorantly call Jesus Christ. Right? So let's get right into it. Matthew 22 and verse 23. And it reads, "The same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection, and asked him." Right? So that's an important part when you're dealing with these with this account, to understand that the Sadducees didn't understand the resurrection, right? Or anything spiritual for that matter, right? Let's go into it. Sadducees, right? I just type in Sadducees, right? Check this out. It says, a member of a Jewish sect or party of the time of Yahushua that denied the resurrection of the dead. So they denied the resurrection of the dead, right? So they denied that Yahushua is going to come back in the last days and beam up those that are dead and those that are living. Right, and it says the existence of spirits. So they denied the spiritual world. They denied the fact that a brother could die and their body goes back down to the dust, and that their spirit goes back up into the third heaven. They denied that, and the obligation of oral tradition. Right, but the point we wanted is that they denied these things. Right, let's try to get a little deeper in there. Let's go into Wikipedia, right? Let's go to the beliefs of the Sadducees, right? So these are the beliefs. It says there is no fate. God does not commit evil, right? Even though the Bible clearly goes against that. It says man has free will, right? There's no free will in the Bible. So they kind of carnal, and they kind of don't know what's going on, right? And it says the soul is not immortal. There is no afterlife. So they feel like once your carnal body dies, it's over. They don't believe that your spirit goes back up to the third heaven, right? So these men are carnal. And it says there are no rewards or penalties after death, right? And they don't believe in judgment, right? So let's go into it. Let's go back to the book of Matthew 22 and 23. It says the same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection, and asked him, saying, Master, Moses said if a man die having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up seed unto his brother. Right? So Moses did say that. Let's go into it. It's Deuteronomy 25 and verse 5, right? And it reads, if brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger, right? It says her husband's brother shall go into her, right? So let's say you and a brother were dwelling together. He had a wife, right? And they never bear children, and he died. You would have to go into his wife to raise up seed in his name, right? And it says, and take him to wife and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her, right? And it says, and it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. You understand? So that's plain. Let's go back to Matthew 22. Right, so that's in the law. Let's go to Matthew 22 and 30. We're still at, let's read verse 24 again. It says, saying, Master, Moses said, if a man die having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up seed unto his brother. Right? Now there were with us 7 brethren, and the first, when he had married a wife, deceased, having no issue, left his wife unto his brother. You understand? So they're coming up with some nonsense to try to confound the Lord. So verse 26, it says, likewise the second also, and the third unto the 7th. And last of all, the woman died also. Right? So they're saying this woman has 7 brothers and she never bare them any seed. Right? And the woman ended up dying also at the end. And it says, therefore in the resurrection, whose wife shall she be of the 7? So now they asking the Lord, all right, she has 7 brothers, right? She married all of them, and none of them gave her seed. So in the resurrection, whose wife is she going to be? Right? And it says, for they all had her, right? So check this out. This is a heavy point. It says, Yahushua answered and said unto them, ye do err, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of God, right? So the Sadducees didn't know the scriptures, man, right? In verse 30, it says, for in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. And this is the verse that you Christians and men with no understanding would try to use to say it's going to be no sex in the kingdom of heaven, right? But it says, let's read this again. It says, for in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven, right? So let's see what this word resurrection is going into. Salakia, bear with me. Salakia. Come on, man. What's going on, man? Salakia, bear with me. Kind of vexing me through the spirit, right? So the first definition is literally a raising up, rising, right? You have a rising from the dead, right? You have the resurrection of certain ones' history, right? And you have, let's go into the Strong's definition. It says resurrection from dead, raised to life again, resurrection, rise from the dead, that should rise, rising again, right? And the first definition of outline of biblical usage is a rising up, right? Rising, right? Which is really dealing with, in this context, is dealing with your spirit rising when you die, right? Your body goes back into the dust where it came from, and your spirit rises up into the third heaven with the Most High God, right? Let's get some precepts on that. So that's what the Lord is telling them. When your spirit is in the third heaven with the Lord, you're not going to be given in marriage, right? And you're not going to marry, right? The angels in heaven are not having sex, right? So when your spirit goes up into the third heaven, you're not going to be having sex. That's what this is going into, right? The Sadducees didn't believe that your spirit goes up with the Lord. Let's go to the Book of Ecclesiastes 12:7, right? And it reads, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was. So when you die, your body returns to the earth, and the spirit shall return unto the Most High God who gave it. You see that? And that's plain. Your spirit goes up into the Most High God who gave it, right? So this is what the Lord is explaining, right? Let's get another one. Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 21. So this is the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse, I'm going to start from 20. All go into one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again, right? So when you die, you go back to the dust. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, right? So this is what the Lord is talking about with that word resurrection, meaning rising up, right? It says, who knoweth the spirit of a man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth, right? But the point we want is that the spirit of the man rises up, right? It rises up into the third heaven with the Lord, right? And up there in the third heaven, you're not going to be marrying or giving in marriage, right? So that's what the Lord is going into, right? So let's go back to Matthew 22 and verse 30. And let's read verse 30 again. I'm going to read verse 29 again real quick just to make a point. It says, Yahushua answered and said unto them, you do err not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. And they were carnal men. So they don't understand the power of God or the scriptures, right? So let's bring this out. 1 Corinthians 2 and 14. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the spirit of the Most High God. So they can't receive these things. They can't receive the existence of angels, right? They can't receive the third heaven, right? Spirit rising back up into the Lord. These things they cannot perceive. They don't even believe that your soul lives on after you die, right? And it says, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the spirit of the Most High God, for they are foolishness unto him. And it says, neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. So the Sadducees were spiritually discerned. All they understood was carnal things. They couldn't see anything spiritual, right? And it says, but he that is spiritual judgeth all things, yet he himself is judge of no man. But the point we want is that the natural man, the carnal man, they can't perceive spiritual things, right? And we went into precepts to show in the Old Testament that your spirit goes back up into the Lord. But somehow they couldn't perceive these things in the scriptures, right? And they didn't believe in angels, but we can go into the precepts and show the existence of angels, right? So these men, like the Lord said, they do err not knowing the scriptures. So this Psalm chapter 103 and verse 20. Bless Yahweh, ye his angels, right? So we got angels in the book of Psalms. And the Sadducees had the book of Psalms, right? But they didn't know the scriptures. And it says that excel in strength, that do his commandments, hearkening unto the voice of his word, right? So the Sadducees were just carnal men, right, who didn't know the scriptures. So let's go back into Matthew 22 and 30. And it reads, For in the resurrection they neither marry, and we just went into it to show that this word resurrection is dealing with the raising up of your spirit, right? When your body goes back down to the dust. Nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of the Most High God in heaven. And that's when you're going to be like the angels. When your body, when your spirit raised up to the third heaven, you're going to be in the third heaven in the spiritual body like the angels, right? And let me get this real quick in 1 Corinthians 15. Go to verse 40, get straight to the point. So this is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 40, and it reads, there are celestial bodies, right? So let's go into that word celestial, right? And this word celestial is dealing with the bodies that's existing in heaven, right? Talking about spiritual bodies, right? Things that take place in heaven, the heavenly regions, right? That's what that word is, celestial is going into, spiritual bodies, right? And you have, it says there are celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. Let's go into that word terrestrial, right? Just for edification's sakes, right? And it's going into existing upon the earth, earthly terrestrial. So this is talking about your earthly carnal body, right? So let's read verse 40 from the top. It says, there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial is one and the glory of the terrestrial is another, right? So these are two different bodies. You understand? So let's go back. So when you're in that the third heaven, right, you're not going to be having sex, right? So that's the point. That's what Yahweh Shai was bringing out. You're not going to be given in marriage, or you're not going to marry when you're in the third heaven, and when your spirit is sent to the third heaven with the Lord, right? So let's read Matthew 22 and verse 30 again. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of the Most High God in heaven, right? But, right, and that's the heavy point, right? It says but, meaning now that the Lord is about to go into a different resurrection, right? It says but as touching the resurrection of the dead. Now this is talking about when you're resurrected in the last days, when Yahweh Shai return with the angels, right? And he beams up those that are in the ground and those that are still living, right? Let's get this real quick precept in Daniel 12 and 2. Right, and it says, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And that's talking about being beamed up in the last days. And that's talking about the resurrection. That's literally talking about the resurrection of the dead. Now, these are two different resurrections. That's why he said but, right? So you got to deal with context. You got to have spiritual discernment when you read the scriptures. Let's go back to it, right? So it says, but in verse 31, it says, but as touching the resurrection of the dead. So he made a distinction between the resurrection he was talking about in verse 30 and the one that he's now talking about in verse 31. It says, but as touching the resurrection of the dead, have ye not read that which was spoken unto you by the Most High God, saying, I am the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And when the multitude heard this, they were astonished at his doctrine. So that's plain, right? So the Lord is not saying in heaven you're not going to have sex, and we're going to prove that, right? Let's go to the book of Isaiah 60, right? And it's the book of Isaiah, chapter 60 and verse, I'm going to start from 21, and it reads, so this is talking about the kingdom of heaven, right? It says, thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, right? The branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified, right? So this is talking about the kingdom, right? And verse 22 is the point. A little one shall become 1,000. So one child is going to become 1,000 because they're going to reproduce that much. You understand? And a small one, a strong nation. How are you going to reproduce without sex, right? How is one going to become 1,000 without sex, right? And it says, I, Yahweh, will hasten it in his time. So that's plain, man. We're going to have sex in the kingdom, right? Let me get another one. Let me see if I can find this. This is what I want right here, I believe so. Let's start from verse So this is the book of Matthew chapter 19 and verse 29. It says, everyone that have forsaken houses or brethren or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold. Right? So you're going to receive 100-fold of everything that you gave up. Right? Your brothers and sisters, father, mother, wife. Right? And it says, and shall inherit everlasting life. Right? That's plain. Let me see real quick. It's kind of going to the same thing. I'm going to read it anyway, right? So this is Mark chapter 10 and verse 29. It says, and Yahushua answered and said, verily I say unto you, there is no man that have left house or brethren or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my sake and the gospel's, but he shall receive 100-fold now in this time houses and brethren and sisters and mothers and children and lands with persecutions in the world to come everlasting life. So, hey, we're going to reproduce in the kingdom, man, right? So, Lord willing, this was edifying, right? Shalom, Yasha Allah. Come, Yasha Allah. Love y'all, Yasha Allah.